over the years, I've been on the board of the Pinnacle, Putney Mountain Association, so I've just built zillions of trails here. And I'm going to look today at what is involved in constructing these trails. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a tour up the new Deer Run Nature Preserve, which is at the southwest end of this long ridge down in Dummerston. It's run by the Green Mountain Conservancy. And because we already have slides of it, I will show you some of the techniques that I use in building trails down there that are absolutely applicable up here and have been used up on the Pinnacle Trails and Putney Mountain Trails that I've built. I have done this now for so long that I've really learned a lot, and I also am getting kind of old. I'm 73, so I'm passing on some of what I have evolved to know, learning the hard way sometimes, other times the easy way. So let's turn back the clock to the late 1980s. I was naive. The Nature Conservancy had just acquired, through donation, the piece of land that is the west side of Black Mountain, the steep uphill section there. They wanted volunteers to lay out this new trail, so I volunteered, didn't know anything, and I met the other volunteer who agreed to do it at the West River where we're going to build the trails. And some of you have heard this before, but I was really excited. I had no knowledge, but he had done trails before, so he thought to bring surveyor ribbon to mark the trees. Good idea. But this was the month of July, and what color surveyor ribbon do you think he brought? Green. So before we'd even started, we'd made a mistake, okay? And so that meant we'd learned something. So we'd gotten a little, you could view it as getting a little ahead, huh? And then the next mistake we made, we didn't realize right away. That's a steep piece of terrain, and everybody who passed math in high school knows that the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line. So straight up the hill we went, right? We knew this was going to be a little hard on the hikers, a little steeper, but it looked good to us. Well, come back about 5 years later, and all the footsteps going up that steep hill had created a lot of erosion, and then we realized, oh, maybe this was another mistake to learn from, right? So don't go straight up a hill, take a zigzag, do a switchback, then it's not so steep for the hikers, and at the same time, it's not going to erode out. The next trail I worked on was the Jamie Latham Trail, which was, I think, the first trail of the Pinnacle system. And it goes, those of you who know it goes 2 miles north from the Pinnacle, along the crest of the ridge, to the parking area and kiosk at the end of Old Athens Road. And the northern one half of that 2-mile trail, which I did not help lay out, I was just a helper building it, was over an area that had just been really intensively logged, right? Probably 85% of the trees had been removed. And so that meant that the sunlight was coming all the way down to the ground, and so underbrush was really growing. But the skid road that had been left by the loggers went right along the crest of the ridge about where you'd want to put a trail. So those in charge of laying it out that day made the reasonable, naive assumption, this would be a great place for a trail. Just follow the skid road. It's already cleared. Nobody can miss it. Put up a few markers so that they know they're on the trail. It's ready to go. What's the problem? Well, once again, come back, say 5 years later, what's happened with all that undergrowth, with all that sunlight coming down? You may love raspberries, I do too, but blackberries and raspberries are coming in with their barbs, and this is the kind of maintenance that you cannot let go on a trail, because if it's coming in like this, everybody's getting scratched and cut. One time, probably 8 years after the trail had been opened, board member Rebecca Nixon and I spent an entire day hacking away at these things to just keep the trail open. Clearly, this woods road was not the solution that had been hoped for. So with woods roads in logged areas, you want to try to see if you can come up with a better trail route than that. Okay, a second problem on that northern half of that trail section was that it was a skid road, and a lot of the skid roads have drainage problems. And this one acquired quagmires from people walking through these low areas, and we had to do 4 major detour reroutes just to get around those problems. So skid roads are something you want to try to avoid, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to use them. But again, we learned from our errors. So over the next few years, I made more mistakes, learned more things, also had successes, learned from that, copied from other places, until finally, about 5 years ago, the Green Mountain Conservancy in Dummerston acquired the first land of its Deer Run Nature Preserve, Phase 1, and they came to me and said, "Would you like to put a trail up here for us, please?" And I said, "Sure." So my task was to put a trail from the Camp Arden Road kiosk and parking area up to the summit here. And so the very first thing that I did was to take orange surveyor ribbon and go all the way around the property lines of that Phase 1 area, marking trees conspicuously, not necessarily on the exact property line, so that when I'm in the land itself, looking of where to put the trail, I can see where the property line is, so I don't mistakenly run a trail onto the neighbor's land, which is what I'm trying to avoid. So that's the first thing that I would do. And then I would go into this land, which is 287 acres, and start exploring it. What I'm looking for are beautiful places and workable trail routes, basically. So I'm taking different colored surveyor ribbons with me and basically looking, say with orange surveyor ribbon, try this segment of trail, yellow surveyor ribbon going up here, white there, putting a huge spider web of trail options, all of which are walkable, all of which can drain, they're workable, and create a huge salad bar of choices from which I can finally come up with the best trail segments. So by putting trails that are here, that's going up, a trail segment goes, that's orange up here, then one that's white going here, yellow here, you create these choices, a blue one, a yellow one. Yellow's better. Then we come up here, orange and pink, pink is better. And by creating all of these choices, I create all these choices to make the better choice each time. You see what I'm saying? And so if you can put together a trail that wherever there was an option, you went with the better choice. When you put this all together into the final trail, every single segment is the better choice that you had available at the time. You can't miss having a superior trail overall. But this is hugely labor intensive. Originally, I was thinking of possibly making a loop here, so I looked really, really thoroughly on that land. And also, in doing this, you can't miss the beautiful places that may be there. So that's really important, super, super important. So the total amount of time I spent researching the land for that trail was 100 hours. That's how much it took. And I laid out 5 or 6 times as much distance in different surveyor ribbon markings as is the final trail. But what you end up with is a really nice trail. So let's look at an example of this, and now we'll start going forward. If you're, not yet, back, okay, thanks. If you start out at the parking area where the kiosk is on Camp Arden Road, there's a woods road heading right into the preserve that was already there. This woods road slopes slightly, so it's not going to get it into a quagmire. It's perfectly nice, right? But it's going in a straight line. It's a little monotonous, so okay, not bad. Or you could do this, which parallels that exact same route. They both go from the same point A to the same point B. Next slide. But this other one, I laid out deliberately to put on purpose mini curves in there, random curves that break up the monotony, okay? And also it aims at times towards these white pine trees because they just block your view, so you have to play peekaboo with the trail. And so this trail and the earlier woods road go to exactly the same destination. They're parallel to each other. Either one is adequate, but one of them's better. And so that's basically what I repeat over and over and over again in laying out trails, is finding the best options that's available. So let's continue into the preserve. There we go. And what do we get to? A stream. Now, presently the stream has a bridge across, but when we first put the trail in, there was no bridge there. We just did stepping stones going down a 5-foot deep mini ravine, crossing the stream like this, and then up the 5-foot mini ravine to come on the other side. And those of you who've hiked in the White Mountains or on the Long Trail, this is normal, right? What's wrong with that? But if you're trying to reach as many people who want to hike as possible, guess what? A lot of people have various ailments, knees and ankles and hips. They may have balance issues. This stream was an obstacle for those people. It was tough for them. So 2 years ago, there was a huge flood. There went all the heavy stepping stones that had been so hard to emplace. And we hired Adam Gilbert in Putney to build this bridge, which I think he just did an excellent job. It's locust wood and steel I-beams. And it gets you across the stream and basically allows people who aren't in good shape or who have physical ailments to cross and enjoy the trails, which is very much the goal I'm trying to aim when I build the trails, is I try to aim for who I think of as the out-of-shape hiker. I'm trying to reach as high a proportion of the population as possible. So by having a bridge here, now they can get across the stream that before was a problem. And as soon as they get across the stream, look at this carnage. Do you remember that? Do you remember last March, a year ago March, we had a killer snowstorm where the white pines are just slamming down left and right. Look at this. It looks like a war zone. And so what does that mean? It means you need stewardship, right? People have to come in with the chainsaws, brrr, brrr, and cutting through. Every trail needs a steward, and I should point out, and it's super important, because what's the point of building a good trail if people don't maintain it? And I want to say the Pinnacle does an excellent job of maintenance. But most stewardship is not chainsawing. Most stewardship is small branches, little twigs and things like that. But occasionally you have to do this heavy cutting. So if we were to take the total height or the total distance from the parking area on Camp Arden Road, 2 miles north of the covered bridge in West Dummerston on the east side of the river, from the Camp Arden Road parking area up to the summit, the gradient, the average gradient is 19%. That's way too steep. You want to get ideally down to something closer to 10% as your average gradient. And so how do you accomplish that? Well, you have to do a big zig, a big zag, another zig, another zag. This big zig, like this, knocks it from 19% to 11%. And then all these smaller little switchbacks take another 2% off. So the total gradient on the trail is now 9%, not 19%. That's the average. Some of it's steeper, some of it less. But now, and you had to slightly more than double the trail distance to accomplish that. And so now it's a really pleasant trail, whereas if you had to go up, some of the sections in here are 35 and 40% gradient. It would have been impossible. So here, to cut, when you have the hill like this and you have to cut diagonally across it, if we just said, oh, put some markers up and said, this is the trail, just walk along there, it would be a disaster. People's ankles would be twisting, they'd be slipping and sliding. If you had a tape recorder out there, you would pick up the sounds of various epithets. And so what you have to do is this thing called side hilling. Okay, so here's the hill. You take a mattock, or this is what I use, a mattock, which is a tool with a kind of like a pickaxe, and you start chomping away and creating a treadway that now continues up this way with a slight outsloping like that, so that the water does not go down the trail, it goes off like that. This is critical. Drainage is absolutely essential on trails. You can never fudge or cheat on drainage. It must drain properly. So the trail is not quite is not quite flat here, but it's sloping just a little bit, but your feet don't feel it sloping. Your feet feel fine. So you make the feet feel good and the water flow away. That's side hilling. Next. And here you can see this has been side hilled here, chomped away. It's very labor intensive. If we lived in Vladimir Putin's Russia and we said the wrong things, we would be sent to Siberia for side hilling. Very, very labor intensive. But if you're on steep slopes, you have to use it a lot. And so that's where your labor goes. And I think next, what do we have? And so here you can see it sometimes curving. Okay, so side hilling comes in 3 flavors. Category 1 is obligatory side hilling, where it's so steep you must use it. Okay, category 2 is desirable side hilling, where you could get away without doing it, but it's really going to improve the trail a lot. And then category 3 is deluxe, where where you have so much time and labor available. God, let's take this that's 90% okay and let's make it 100% okay. It's kind of like that. So side hilling is what's going to occupy most of your labor time. It just eats it up, eats it up, eats it up. And I have found that a lot of people don't like it, but I've luckily been able to find a crews of people who love doing it. And so we're out there. And so with side hilling, you use a mattock. You don't chomp like this like Paul Bunyan, no. It's more chomp, chomp, chomp like that. You run into rocks, you run into roots. You use a little folding saw that you're willing to sacrifice and cut the roots, and you just go. So, let's say, yeah?
Roger, what would a premium side hill trail look like?
Oh, well, you can come to Deer Run. Or many of the trails on the Pinnacle system have been side hilled beautifully. I mean, so...
No doubt, but what can you describe what to look for in a premium side hill?
Well, a steep slope to begin with, right? That's what's going to be the premium. And then you want the treadway to have ever so slight an outslope to it. And basically, your feet should feel comfortable. That's really what you're solving for as the consumer, is comfortable. And so what you don't want to see is evidence of the water coming down the trail. That would be a big problem. So let's say that we're going to be cutting a trail. And we've got some branches up here, right, coming in. So you take loppers, right? And imagine yourself carrying a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of plywood through the woods vertically. That's what you're trying to cut most of the time. Occasionally you might want to do something different, but that's the rule of thumb. So that's the first thing you have to do to create a trail. Second, it's optional, usually, though occasionally you need to absolutely have to do it. You want to get all the seedlings in the treadway. Rip them out. Is that labor intensive? Yes, it is. But you're going to get a better trail when you do that. And then you want to mark the trail. Some places use painted blazes, but we, that is to say I, many years ago made the decision to go with the 2-inch colored discs, the plastic discs, and ever since everybody on this ridge has done that, because we're trying to color coordinate our different Putney Mountain Pinnacle trails, so they're all the same. And so when you're doing the discs, the rule of thumb is you want to always be able to see the next disc ahead. And 95% of the time you can do that. There'll be the occasional time there's just no tree ahead in the right place, so put the disc at the next available place. Sometimes we've had to use colored ribbons to mark the trail in places where there's just only little bushes and things. And let's see, when you're putting the discs in, I use 1.5-inch aluminum roofing nails, and I nail the disc only in enough to hold the disc and try to leave as much of the nail sticking out as possible, because the trees are going to grow and eventually they're going to envelop the discs, which eventually need to get replaced, but it's not on too high of a replacement cycle. Then, let's see, the next, and also when you do corners on trails, now if the trail's going this way, we try to do double discs pointing this way, or if it's going this way, double discs that way. If you get double discs vertically, it means you're at a stop point or an intersection. It used to be we used double disc vertically everywhere, but that's a new grammar, if you will, of the discs. And you don't want to get so many discs that it's visually too busy. You know, you don't want to be able to see 4 or 5 at the same time, if you can help it. And then, a few years ago, when laying out a trail and it's having a curve and I didn't want people to miss the curve and keep going, I would pile brush on the outside just to discourage them from going. And then I thought to myself, well, why not put logs all the way along all the trails that I'm building whenever I build them, because that would tell people where the trail is. When a brand new trail has been built, there's no treadway worn in yet. So it would guide them exactly where I want them to go. And as time went by, the treadway would get worn in by all the passage of people's footprints and become the obvious trail. Meanwhile, these guide logs that I've laid down would rot away or get covered with leaves. And so what I'd end up creating is now 5 ways of showing people where the trail is. 1, cutting the branches near their chest height. 2, the getting rid of the seedlings. 3, the discs. 4, the guide logs. And 5, the treadway. This is 5 systems to help people who don't have a good sense of direction, and believe me, they're out there. Not get lost. I mean, you can't do everything. And then the guide logs can do something else, which is pretty amazing. If you think of a skid road where you have the deep ruts from the tire of the skidders, and then the center hump and the berms on either side, you have these different levels of the ground. The tire ruts are where people's psychology thinks the trail should go, and so that's where they're going to walk if you just let them do it, and they're going to make everything muddier and turn into a quagmire. But if you use guide logs to put the trail up either on the center hump or on the berms on either side, and people are only on these high points and never in the low points, and you pull all the seedlings in where the treadway is going to go, you now have solved a problem of woods roads and skid roads drainage by using the guide logs to direct people only to go to the high places, never to the low places. And the ruts that had been a problem before now become drainage ditches, actually assisting you in doing this. So the guide logs let you do that, and they also, if you're laying a trail across hummocky land, and a lot of our land is hummocky, if you can always just go for the high hummocks and avoid the little depressions, they're going to drain better. But you couldn't do that without the guide logs because people just go where they want. This way you're forcing them to go the right way. So here's some guide logs here. Next slide. And I guess we're getting guide logs sort of fading into the background a bit. Next. And here you can see one guide log and a deep side hill. Next. More details of that. Next. And there's a beech tree. I'm not sure how that got in there, but it's in there. And finally, this property is crisscrossed by power lines. And so the trails have to cross power lines. And when you get a power line, you get a view provided for free to the organization anyway by the electric company. And so this trail crosses here, and then we continue, and we reach a set of signs that are plagiarized from the style that Sarah Waldo came up with when she was doing the trails for the Pinnacle Association, where the background color is dark hunter green, and white letters are the trail names, and then you attach the appropriate discs. I think it's a really good color combination because it doesn't jar at you, but you can't miss it either, and the dark green really works. Next. Next, we get to a higher version of that earlier power line, and here you can see the covered bridge down in Dummerston. Next. There it is. And up on this section of power line, although I don't have a photo of it, we're crossing bare bedrock, right? And sometimes trails have to go on bare bedrock, but bare bedrock shares the characteristics that logs have, that roots have, all of which have the characteristic of giving you good traction when they're dry. But when they get wet, they're slippery. So if you have to go on bare bedrock, first of all, you want to try to minimize it for that reason. But also what you really want to avoid is trying to run a trail like this on bare bedrock that's slipping, because it's like you're walking on ice, kind of, once it gets wet. And then when it's dry, it's fine again. Next. And so we are back in the woods. Next picture. And here we are. This section of trail is where I'm going for what I think of are some of the prettiest places, and I call this the Hemlock Cathedral here. This was taken, I guess, in November, but if you go there in sunny weather and in the summertime, these shafts of sunlight are coming down. The trees are vertical, the shafts are vertical. You feel like you're in a cathedral. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. Next. And there you're looking up. Next. And another thing that I try to aim for, well, first of all, in general, I want to go for variety as a goal all on its own. And one kind of variety to go for is old growth trees. People on the sister trail that's not on Deer Run but is also in Dummerston, the Missing Link Trail, presently goes north to the largest ash tree in the state of Vermont. And these old trees just have an incredible personality, right, when they get really, really old. There is another ash tree further north that's about, I guess in the state contest, is about this close to beating us. So, and the problem, right, and, well, okay, all right. This was a state, I don't know, I was not the umpire on this game. But, okay, but there's a problem with these old trees. Next, they fall down. Yeah, so sometimes you have to run a trail across a seep, you know, where water's coming out of the ground. You want to try to find your way around these problems if you can, but sometimes you're stuck with it. And so a solution can be take big rocks, put them on the bottom, middle rocks on the middle, smallest rocks on the top, and you're not trying to build up a trail that's necessarily so high that you're above the seep, but you're just trying to armor the treadway, make it really hard so that when people walk on it, yes, their shoes get a little wet, but they're not sinking into the quagmire. But unfortunately, I have found that when you fix one area of the seep, great. And guess what? The seep now decides to come out over here. So it's like cat and mouse. Swamps, I try to avoid, basically. It's bad ecologically to go near them. And of course, trying to put a trail through a swamp is just a nightmare. Mostly on this ridge, we're so high, there aren't a lot of swamps that you need to avoid. So eventually we can do, next one, we get up to the summit. There's no cleared view at the summit. Next. But what it does have is this mystery monument of black rock. Who knows what it is, but it's an item of interest, so the trail goes to it. Now, we don't know whether, is it put there by the Native Americans? Maybe. Early settlers, possibly. Could it be the Norse? Well, you can't rule it out. Or the hippies, or was it the UFOs? We don't know. So now we're going to come down from the summit, and we're going to go onto the shoulder trail. And what we're now going to do is we're going to make a loop. So we've gotten to the summit, and so now we're going to make a whole loop here. And trails can have basically 4 possible shapes. Point A to point B, point A to a pretty destination, a loop like this, or if you can put 2 loops together, you can get a figure 8. So we're going to do the loop, and we're going on the shoulder trail, and it's a lovely trail. And then you, next, and then you come to the great power line. And this is the best power line of all. When you step onto it, you expect Julie Andrews and the Von Trapp family to be singing "The Hills Are Alive" with the sound of music. And does anyone know what that roof is? The Pinnacle, exactly. So the Pinnacle can see that power line cross the shoulder and vice versa. Next. And here, there's another shot of it. This is, I mean, it's just really beautiful. And over there is part of the Lily Pond holding. Next. There's one more shot of it. And so you can look up all these different valleys. It's a spectacular view. Next. Looking down to Winchester Stables. Yep. Next. And I don't know what that is. And then next. Okay. And then from the end of the shoulder trail, we go on to the North Trail, which is going to take us down to the river. And the North Trail at this uppermost part is in a hop hornbeam savanna, okay, which is an open understory woods, which those of you who know the Pinnacle know just south of the Pinnacle there's a beautiful hop hornbeam savanna, right, just south of the cabin for the first 200 or 300 yards going south. This is another example of that. Again, it's a ridge top, and there's basically 3 kinds of open understory forests that are really nice. The hemlocks, sugar bushes that don't have much understory, and then these hop hornbeam, either oak or maple savanna type environments. So if you have a choice, you're often making the better choice if you can find these places and put the trail through. Then we drop down next to rocks. I deliberately ran the trail over to some huge boulders that basically make a more interesting route for the trail. And so it's kind of like the Flintstones, bedrock. Next slide. Next. And finally, we get down to the meadow here, which is a 50-acre meadow along the West River, which is on the east side from the Winchester stables. So you've probably seen it many times when you drive by. Next, there's a tractor road, and next, and you get to see the West River, okay? Then the trail from here does not actually consist of a marked trail because I have not figured out how to maintain that. So you have to bushwhack, grass whack your way following the tractor treads all the way down to where we join the ravine trail next, and next from there. And the ravine trail starts heading us back up, and it's appropriately called the ravine trail because it's a 50-foot deep ravine, and the trail runs right along the shoulder of the bluff looking down. And so when you have a choice of either on a ridge top or on a bluff like this of where to put a trail, if you run it right on the shoulder, you solve two problems at the same time. You get great drainage, and you get the feeling of depth. And so I'm trying to convey always a more vivid experience for the hiker. And so if you can give them more of those things that give them feelings of depth or just more interest, it's going to be a more well-experienced hike. So that's what I'm aiming for, is vividness. So eventually we go all the way back up to here, and then we come down to the parking area, and we're back to our vehicles. So what can I say to take away from this? If you want a really good trail, even though it's very labor intensive and takes a lot of time, do the exploration to look for all the possible trail routes, because that's the way you can come away thinking, boy, I came up with the best that I could have come up with here. I don't think I've left any stone unturned. So you have to love just walking through the woods and walking through the woods and walking through the woods and comparing, but that gives you your superior stuff to work with. Then everything has to drain. Right. You cannot cheat on that. It's got to drain. So and if you're trying to prevent things from getting soggy, it's way easier to divert around a soggy place than to have to put a trail over soggy material, and you have to bring in rocks and all kinds of stuff. Super hard work to do. So but everything must drain. And then the last thing I would say is, when in doubt, go for what's beautiful, because that's what's going to make the vivid impression on people. So go for the beauty. Yep.
Pragmatics. So how many tools are you carrying with you at any given day, and how do you keep them under control? You put them down, you go this way, then you have to go back and get it.
Right, good question. Well, it depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing side hilling, okay, I've got it down. I used to, as Sarah knows, I used to have a lot more tools, but I got it way down to what's called a pick-matic, right, which is like a pickaxe, kind of. A small, one of those little folding hand saws that I'm,
put that in your back pocket.
Yep, that I'm willing to sacrifice for cutting roots. Okay, so I'm going to sacrifice that. And then critically, a little plastic carpenter's level, because I'm always trying to check the level so everything drains properly. Because when you're on steep slope, at least my intuitive sense of what level is when you're on a steep slope isn't necessarily accurate. So I just use the carpenter's level to always make sure everything's outsloping. So when I'm doing side hilling, I've got it down to that, and I can carry that.
If you have loppers and a rake.
Lopper, that would be, I would do that separately as a separate task. So loppers, and again a handsaw, and because I've gotten too old to do the chainsawing, I have someone else handle the chainsawing, which, if you have a log down there, you've got to chainsaw it, basically. Yeah, Sarah.
But also, I remember doing the Bradford Smith Trail, that you had a stash of tools.
I did. Oh, that's right. And I stashed.
Them.
That's right. For doing the side hilling, I leave all my gear on location. When I'm just carrying loppers, I'll usually just travel back and forth carrying.
There's some choreography involved. You have your days
Well, yeah, when I'm in a given area, I'm going to be there for some weeks probably. And then, so I only have to carry the stuff in one time. And also I found when carrying the stuff, if I put them into one of those really strong leaf bags, I just put them all in there and carry that.
That's what I was looking for, the little details.
Yeah, and also when you're lifting a mattock, never carry it over your shoulder, okay? The reason not to is this is heavy, and if you trip, you now turn into a pendulum in reverse, and you're gonna go whomp. And so you've got to carry it down here. So that's an important safety item. Yes?
Do animal or wildlife trails ever help you out?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I call it the Animal Corps of Engineers. Yes. They have explored for all the best routes. Now, I don't know, their standards of steepness sometimes are not up to what I'm aiming for. Right, so I have a rule. If the animals are already going here, you kind of have to go there because you don't want to have two competing trails next to each other. The same with woods roads. Although maybe every once in a while you can break the rule, but basically if you have a woods road going here and you want to have a trail going in the same direction and they can see each other, forget the trail. You must go on the woods road because otherwise people are going to be cutting back and forth. And if they're putting in all these trails on their own back and forth, you're going to have chaos in terms of keeping people from getting lost and that kind of thing. So basically your hand is forced by the woods roads. So, and some woods roads are beautiful, but some are horrible. Yeah?
Is there a threshold or anything in terms of meeting state regulations, like the private landowner, even to build a bridge over a stream kind of thing? Are there things people have to be mindful of or not?
I know you're not supposed to do a lot of digging really close to a stream, okay? So you don't get the sediment down in there. That bridge there is the only bridge that I've ever worked on. Luckily, mostly on this ridge, there aren't streams big enough to need bridging. So we've just done it with stepping stones. So I don't have that much experience. Similarly, I've been doing this now intensively for 25 years. I have never yet done a water bar. Not even once. Not even once. And on hiking trails that are properly laid out to begin with because you design them to drain properly, I'm going to say you almost never need to do water bars on a properly constructed trail. Every once in a while you do. So water bars are for remedial situations like woods roads where they don't drain properly, or the main trail going up to the pinnacle, the Holden Trail. Yeah. I think I counted 35 separate water bars or ditches, and it's like, I think it's something like once every 150 feet on average. And I want to just commend Tony Coben and Joe Richards for the excellent work that they have done keeping that maintained, which, because it's a heavily traveled trail, is in a different universe in terms of maintenance than the lightly traveled trails that I'm talking about here. They have a traffic effect on the trails. And so what trails get a lot of popular usage? Easy hikes to great views. And if you don't have both of those, you're going to have low traffic. But if you do have both of those characteristics, and the Pinnacle is a great easy hike to a great view, or the Putney Mountain Trail from Putney Mountain Road to Putney Mountain Summit, or Black Mountain Road up to Black Mountain, those get a lot of usage. The other trails don't. And so you can get away with things on the less traveled trails. Yes?
When you're doing this side hilling thing and cutting roots, how much consideration is needed to be given, or is any given to potential harm to trees?
A lot. I'm a lover of trees. And fortunately for the trees, the same big roots that they don't want you to cut, I don't want to have to cut because it's really hard cutting them. So in those situations, I'll almost always leave them unless I really think somebody's going to trip. So I'm trying to be kind to the trees. I do apologize to them.
So it's mostly small roots?
It's small roots, but right, and they're just, they're just, I'm just trying to create a nice treadway without a lot of stuff in it. Yep. Yeah.
I was wondering how wildlife habitat plays into your trail planning consideration.
Not much. I will say on the lesser traveled trails, I don't think the human usage is a big impactor on the wildlife. I can say from observation, the wildlife like to go on our trails. You can, especially in the wintertime, you can see all the deer prints and things. So as far as wetland areas, I try to bypass those very much. But other than that, I don't pay too much attention to the wildlife issue. All right. Well, great.